Good morning, my dear Christian brothers and sisters, on this Friday before the 4th of July. I hope this finds you well and living your very best life in Jesus Christ. I was looking back, and I've written a few times in the last year or so about dealing with disappointment in our lives as believers. The reason I do this is because I'm aware, and I'm sure you are as well, that this is a recurring problem in our lives. This is a topic that's always relevant, and yet one with which we all struggle at times in spite of our best intentions. I can't help but notice that it's a small step from dealing with disappointment and frustration in a situation to feeling like what you're doing is hopeless and without result. This can be especially true when dealing with encouraging and motivating other believers to develop good spiritual habits, which will result in a closer and more satisfying walk for them in the Lord. It certainly seems to me that the attitudes and habits developed in the last year have made this task more difficult than ever, as people seem more unwilling to participate in church activities, outreach, Bible study, worship. And as a pastor, it's sometimes hard for me not to try to take responsibility for this. The bigger problem I experience is, however, is that often I will be doing the right things, the things the Lord is telling me to do, and yet I feel that I'm producing little or no result. And if I'm not careful, and I don't keep my eyes firmly on the Lord and His vision, I'll be honest, I'm going to let bitterness and frustration and hopelessness creep into my life like weeds in a garden, choking out the beginnings of what I am promised is going to be a fruitful harvest. I need to remember that even though we may plant and tend and water and weed, it is the Lord that will provide the harvest in His own good time and when the season comes. We must not mistake our role as His, because we're not capable of forcing the result. When we try to do this, when we take too much of the responsibility on ourselves, we're in danger of what my dad used to call getting the big head. We must be willing to faithfully fulfill our role by doing our assigned task, whether we're frankly ever live to see the inevitable result, the inevitable harvest. In the end, servants don't make the garden grow. God does. The scripture records that even Paul felt this frustration at times. He wrote in 1 Corinthians 3:5-9, to remind us of this important fact. He writes, well, what after all is Apollos, or what is Paul? Only servants, through whom you came to believe, as the Lord has assigned to each his task. I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. So neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything but God, who makes things grow. The one who plants and the one who waters have one purpose, and each will be rewarded according to their own labor. For we are co-workers in God's service. We are God's field, God's building. Now we're called to do our part and do the necessary weeding of our own attitudes so that we can perform our duties and tasks cheerfully, joyfully, to God's glory, and not be so concerned about seeing the outcome, especially maybe the outcome that we are hoping for. Not to mention that Scripture is quite clear that God will not prosper things done in a sense of resentment or bitterness. When we serve in such a grudging manner, we befoul the field before the harvest. That's also why Paul reminds us in Hebrews 12:15 to see that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. So in the end, I have to remind myself it's okay to be disappointed when, my work for the Lord seems fruitless at times, or when it seems that you're the only one who cares. But when that happens, as it inevitably will sometimes in our walk, we must remember that we're not promised to see the harvest. Only God will and can grant the increase of a properly planted, nurtured, and weeded life lived in His service. I hope you make today a fantastic day. I hope to see everybody in church on the 4th, and I want you to know that I'm here should you need me, and I truly love you all.